Hello, this is Erin with the Joy in Pens and Paper, and this is a 3 Inks Thursday video. This is number 32 in this series, so feel free to check out the first 31 videos. The early ones definitely are different, and as I have gone on, I've kind of refined it a little bit. So if you want to see the evolution, go ahead and check out number 1. In a 3 Inks Thursday video, what I do is I swatch 3 inks on 3 different papers, and then I use 3 different tools or nib sizes to write with those 3 inks in order to provide myself as well as you an opportunity to compare the 3. So for today, the 3 papers that I will be using, I'm continuing with the trend because I have cut up a bunch and I'm going to use them, of Life Bank Paper Cosmo Air Light, and this is from a Galen Leather Co. Everyday Notebook, and Tomoe River Paper, which is this Galen Leather Co. Everyday Notebook. So, anyway, I just put my fingers all over the paper. The 3 tools that I will be using for writing, well, technically 4, I'll use a Kakimori Brass nib dip pen to do the swatches, and then I have 3 TWSBI Goes in a fine, medium, and stub nib that I will be using for the writing sample comparison. All 3 of my inks today are Birmingham Pen Company inks, 2 of which are relatively new to my collection, and 1 is an ink color that those 2 inks kind of reminded me of. So I'm a little intrigued to compare the 3. Now, the order that I'm going to use is the ink that was previously in my collection that I want to compare these to is Birmingham Pen Company Sandstone. So I'm going to do this one in the middle. And then I have Birmingham Pen Company Plowman's Pebble and Saltmarsh, and I will do these first and last. So without further ado, let's get into it. The first one I'm going to swatch is Saltmarsh. I currently have Plowman's Pebble inked up, which is why I'm going to swatch Saltmarsh first. There we go. Sorry, just moving some things. All right, and I'm going to start with the fine nib, and I'm already seeing the color change from when it was put down to current. Yeah, this is on the Life Bank paper. It's drying a little gray. So I think we're going to see some differences in papers on this one. That's my favorites. All right, so the brand is Birmingham Pen Co. I am doing this without a writing guide behind, so apologies if there's any unevenness. It just is what it is. And this is called Saltmarsh. You know what? I was going to do cursive, but I'm not going to because I find that when I write cursive, it already looks different than my printed writing, and that just adds a variable that I don't really want to talk about right now. All right, and then the stub nib. There we are. And this is really interesting. I am loving the differences on these 3 papers. All right, so that is Saltmarsh. Next up, Sandstone. I almost went out of my own identified order. Silly me. All right. So looking at the Tomoe River, you can see which this is kind of what my mind was basing the comparison on, but you can see the similarities. Sandstone is actually a little lighter than Saltmarsh, but I will talk more about that towards the end. Now, in my experience, Birmingham Pen Company inks are pretty well behaved. They have a nice amount of lubrication. I think the only thing that I think about when I use a Birmingham Pen Co. ink is that there could be some color variation from bottle to bottle. I personally really love the color Pennsylvania Fieldstone. I think it's absolutely gorgeous. But I recently had the opportunity to meet up with someone else who had a bottle of Pennsylvania Fieldstone, and theirs was much more pink leaning than mine. And we talked about how the earlier production of Pennsylvania Fieldstone had a bit more of the murkiness to it versus the production that they had two different bottles as well. They had one, and goodness, Erin, organize your speech. The purchasing of their two bottles was very spaced apart, so they felt that they had kind of two different formulations. This one as well. It's a different color on the Life bank paper. I do want to show, once I'm done with this last writing piece, and it will provide just a few more seconds of dry time, I want to show the water. So I do notice quite frequently with Birmingham Pen Company inks, there is a like a highlighter yellow color that is utilized in the ink formulation, and that really comes out when you're rinsing. So this is the color of the water. None of these inks are very saturated, which you can see in the water as well. All right, so now let's talk about it. Goodness. So starting with Salt Marsh, looking specifically at the Tomoe River versus bank paper, those seem like two different colors. And interestingly, Cosmo Air Light seems like a really nice middle of the two. It's from my eye, I'm seeing a bit of the grayishness on the outline, and then a lot more of the tan in the more saturated area where I'm seeing the shading. But I really love this haloing that's happening. And it's just so beautiful and complex. I recently was talking with Zen of the Pen about Cosmo Air Light paper and how ink really does some fun things on that paper, and it's too bad that it's out of distribution and can be a little harder to come by. I do recommend, if you are fortunate enough to have a fountain pen community of your own, that perhaps you consider doing a group order through Galen Leather Co. and maybe hitting up some free shipping. That's what I'm hoping to be able to participate in the near future, or even split the cost of shipping if you're not getting up to the $250 threshold that Galen Leather Co. has. But if I have the opportunity, I do want to get another Cosmo Air Light notebook, just because it really does some fun things. Actually, I might get two. I might get one. I'll have to check out the prices and see what my budget is. But Salt Marsh does look very different, bank paper to Tomoe River. I love this gray color. However, I love the color that it is on the Tomoe River paper, which is quite frankly why I purchased this ink, is for this color right here. I think it's gorgeous. Now, one thing I was nervous about is whether it would be too close to sandstone. And while it is close, it is different enough that I'm happy to have it in my collection. So I feel as if the sandstone color is a little bit more on the taupey side, and Salt Marsh has the tiniest little hint of almost green to it. So they do look very different. On the Tomoe River, I can see a little bit of some pink coming through. I see that as well as the Cosmo Air Light. It just almost positions the different colors in a different way. So you're seeing all the variation of shade or all the variation of colors in the ink as it's getting more saturated. So I really love that swatch. Now, similarly on the bank paper, it is a different color again. And I'm seeing some green come through. So I wasn't really seeing that over on the Tomoe River, but there's almost this olive green color coming through as like a halo of the more saturated parts. And I realize I'm saying the word like a lot, and I don't love that, so I'm going to try not to do that. But that is a really lovely shade as well. The Plowman's Pebble, I similarly was worried it would be very close, but when looking at the swatches on the Birmingham Pen Company website, Salt Marsh and Plowman's Pebble looked different enough, and I would agree with that here. And then Plowman's Pebble and Sandstone also look different enough, and I'm seeing that here. I, again, really adore how it's presenting on the Cosmo Air Light paper with some very, very light differences with the shading. So you're getting this almost marbled look, which is really pretty, and this little pop of pink right there. On the bank paper, it's gray. It is a warm gray. You got a cool gray and you have a warm gray. That's so fascinating. And I actually don't think that the Life bank paper is working for the Birmingham Pen Company inks. Now I'm curious. I'll have to go back and check out some of my other 3 Ink Thursdays to see where else I have swatched a Birmingham Pen Company ink and see if I swatched it on a Life bank paper. because that's just really interesting how all three colors look so different on bank paper, but they look fairly similar on Cosmo Airlight and Tomoe River. And actually, as I reflect, and I'll just scoot this over, that was also the case with the Sailor Chromo Shading inks. So it's interesting. Very interesting. This is where it's fascinating in this hobby, in this area of interest, to explore the different papers. There are other YouTubers, for example, Karina Loves to Plan, I mention her quite frequently, who are swatching on a wider variety of papers, and that is really fun for me to watch. I know I learn a lot from it. I'm just a really big fan of alliteration, so I'm going to stick with the 3 Thursday because that to me is fun, which is why I do 3 inks Thursday and then do a play on all the threes. So, anywho, that is the 32nd edition of 3 Inks Thursday. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Give this video a like if you found it to be at all enjoyable, and certainly subscribe if you have not already. If you made it to the end, thank you so much. I appreciate that you spent this time with me, and I hope that you have a wonderfully productive rest of your week. I will catch you in the next one. Bye.